Welcome, dear listener, to Wishcrafting, and the third installment of the Philosopher's Path miniseries. I'm your host, Wishamaya, and today we're tracing the golden thread of Neoplatonism, a mystical school of thought that reached beyond logic and into the divine. Neoplatonism is soul science. The Neoplatonists believed that the cosmos was a living being, the soul a divine spark, and that the highest goal of life was to find a mystical reunion with what they called the One, the ineffable source beyond gods and being. Today, we'll meet with a few philosopher mystics, explore the sacred practice of theurgy, and we'll discover how these teachings continue to influence magical and esoteric paths today. From ceremonial magic to modern witchcraft, from Gnosticism to Hermetic revival, we begin our journey. So if you're ready, grab a flashlight, because today we're headed deep into the stacks of the library where the books are old, dusty, and full of magic. Ready? Let's go. Neoplatonism is a mystical and philosophical tradition that emerged in the 3rd century CE, rooted in the teachings of Plato, but transformed into something far more esoteric by later thinkers. The founder of Neoplatonism is Plotinus, whose writings were compiled by his students into a collection called the Enneads. At the center of Neoplatonist mysteries, Plotinus taught that all reality emanates from a single, ineffable source called the One. The One is not a being. It is beyond being, beyond the mind. It is pure unity. In essence, the One is the fountainhead of all existence. From the One flows 3 levels of existence. First, we have Nous, the divine mind, and home of the Platonic forms that we met in episode 37. Also from the One comes number 2, Psyche, the world soul, and from it all other individual souls. And lastly, the 3rd level of existence is Physis, the material world, shaped by the soul's interaction with form and matter. These 3 levels of existence are emanations of the One. Each level doesn't go up or down, but reflects the One in diminishing clarity, like concentric ripples from a divine center. The human soul, caught between matter and divinity, longs to return to the One, according to the Neoplatonists. But how did they try and accomplish this task? Well, that's where theurgy enters the equation. Theurgy means divine work. More succinctly, it's the working or activity of divinity. Within Neoplatonism, this became a practice and a ritual. But it's not about manipulating spirits. It's a sacred technology and a way to restore the soul's connection to the divine order. The guy who introduced the concept of theurgy was a Syrian Neoplatonist named Iamblichus. Quite the name. His teachings on theurgy were a response to a perceived limitation in Neoplatonist philosophy. You see, he did not believe that reason alone could help the soul ascend. Iamblichus thought that there had to be more to it. You couldn't just philosophize your way to the divine, you had to experience it. Of this, he and I are in agreement. In his teachings, he wrote, "It is not thought that links us to the gods, but divine acts performed in harmony with them." So the concept of theurgy, experiencing the gods, was born. Then it was written, and then it was studied, and then it was made better. In modern layman's terms, theurgy is any practice or action directly involved with the divine, as well as the action of divinity itself. So it's any practice or action where you are directly engaging with divinity, and it's also the actions that divinity, gods, spirits, etc. take themselves. Antiquated theurgy involved invocations of gods, angels, and archangels, sacred symbols and words of power such as runes, sigils, or seals being used in rituals or workings, ritual acts that mirrored cosmic order, mystical purification rituals like fasting or vows of silence, as well as, of course, divination. But these rituals weren't about belief. They were about resonance, aligning the soul with its true nature and attuning to divine presence. And truly, that's still what we do today. As a modern practitioner, I do all of the things that I just listed off in some form or fashion. So perhaps they're not antiquated theurgy at all, which is why I wanted to bring this to you today so that you could understand a bit more concisely where some of the modern practices that we have come from. But back to Neoplatonism. Neoplatonists were both polytheists and monoists, meaning they believed in many deities and that all deities were part of the one. Theurgy is a huge part of Neoplatonism, and the key difference that makes theurgy a philosophical practice and a metaphysical one is that while theurgical rites may have called upon the gods, they aimed beyond the gods, towards unity with the source of all, which they called the One. And they got close to this source through expanding their knowledge, engaging with this philosophical school of thought, engaging with theurgical rites, and trying to reach a certain level of soul ascension. Plotinus, the founder of Neoplatonism, described the soul's ascension in stages, with the first being catharsis, or purification, where you let go of desire, fear, and distraction. After catharsis, one would ascend into mimesis, imitation of the divine, living a life of virtue or contemplation, or both, hopefully. And beyond mimesis, the soul would ascend to the third stage, henosis, or union, a mystical experience of merging with the One. Theurgical rituals were usually aimed towards exactly this. Plotinus himself described rare ecstatic moments where the self dissolved. One of these moments that he wrote about said this, quote, "Often I have woken into myself out of the body, become detached from all else, and beheld a beauty beyond words." End quote. This, my friends, is how we build and form gnosis. Engaging with an idea, following a thread, and getting our own lived experience with whatever we see as spirit in the world. It's mirrored here by older mystery traditions that go even beyond Neoplatonism, like Orphism and the Eleusinian rites. But Neoplatonism brought a philosophical architecture to how we form gnosis, which is what made it so important and influential on modern magical practices, modern magical schools of thought, traditional witchcraft and ceremonial witchcraft that shaped so many things that you see here today in books, on TikTok, in groups, etc. Something that I find fascinating about the gnosis of Neoplatonism is that gods were not capricious deities, but aspects of the divine mind. The soul, when aligned with this divine mind, could commune with the gods, not as subject and master, but as equals. This mystical ascent of the soul was the goal not just of philosophers, but of theurgists, mystics, and magicians all across late antiquity. Neoplatonism was very, very popular and very, very trendy. So much so that Neoplatonism deeply shaped the Renaissance magic revival. Huge thinkers of the time viewed magic not as superstition, but as a science rooted in cosmic harmony. Specifically, Neoplatonism directly influenced things like astrological magic and working with celestial intelligence, planetary correspondences as we understand them today, ceremonial magic invoking archangels or divine names or spirits. And it also deeply influenced the development of Kabbalah, especially Kabbalistic interpretations of the soul's journey. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, Thelema, and many other neo-pagan ritual frameworks draw directly from this lineage of thought. Neoplatonism gave Western occultism its mystical backbone and a vision of magic not as control, but as communion. The Neoplatonic path is not about rules, but return. A journey from fragmentation into wholeness. Ultimately, these mysteries teach us that we are not separate. You are the child of a divine mind, called to remember what you already are. But as I mentioned earlier, remembrance is only one part of the puzzle, and the other half comes from going and doing and experiencing the magic. So that first you can remember, and then you can know. That, my dear listener, is how wisdom is born. I hope you enjoyed dipping your toes into the realm of philosophical mystery schools with me. I think it's important to know the backbone of so many of our modern traditions, and this was super fun for me. Little esoteric, makes you really drop in and kind of follow along, but I hope it was fun for you too. That's all I have for you now, and we're done with the Philosopher's Path series for now. But until next time, thank you so much for walking this spiral path with me. My name is Wishamaya, and don't forget to keep your roots deep and your dreams wild.